It's like a shark, NATO, except with poop.
This is an island surrounded by water, big water, ocean water. Trust me, I'm like a smart person. I'm very consistent. I'm a very stable genius. I had the best words. Tolerated. I know words. Mike Pounds. I hope they now go and take a look at the oranges of the investigation. But there's no better word than stupid. Anonymous, really anonymous. I'm very highly educated. One of the wettest we've ever seen from the standpoint of water. Had the best words. God bless the United States.
On the nation, Waldorf Nation, everybody, welcome to the show. It's Friday. We got stories. Let's dive into it. We've got Dominion versus Fox. We got Trump making some very audacious claims, obviously untrue claims, about the January 6th Capitol riot. We got Georgia Republicans going after voting rights once again, and Amazon. We're going to have a little chat about Amazon. And their workers. We got a great story that was broken by Ken Klippenstein of The Intercept. He has moved around. Good for him. Seeing a lot of success. Absolutely love it. And then those of you, of course, not actually on the docket, but I did want to address this as well. Apparently, Joe Manchin's wife is going to be put on a cabinet position? That the Appalachian Regional Commission. Oh, great. Yeah, that's a nomination there. Yay. Look at that. Another example of corruption. Great. Thanks for bringing that to my example, to my attention. So, in fact, according to Yahoo News, President Joe Biden on Friday nominated Gail Connolly Manchin, the wife of Senator Joe Manchin, to serve as co-chair of the Appalachian Regional Commission. The appointment would see Gail Manchin, the former president of the West Virginia Board of Education, heading the ERC, an economic development partnership between the federal government and 13 state governments with the aim of investing in Appalachian communities. West Virginia Senator's crucial role for Biden and Democrats to be able to pass legislation through an evenly divided Senate. So now, hold on here. So if there are some backroom duels... Duels would be awesome. Hey, that'd be some shit. I'd want to see that. But if there are backroom deals that allows Manchin to get something that he wants, right? Which is this appointment. And then he will allow things like $15 minimum wage to go through. I don't know if that's the case. I don't even know if Joe Biden himself is committed to a $15 minimum wage. But if that's what's going on here, it is corruption, and it's an obvious payoff. Now, if there's nothing positive that comes from this, then that sucks. Then that would suck even more for us than the obvious corruption that this appears to be happening. Does this? You think that Manchin is gonna get Manchin to vote in favor of Democratic bills? I mean, I don't know. I don't know. It seems like a payoff, but For what would we get from it? I don't necessarily know. So, but we do know that Joe Manchin, they want to get Joe Manchin to get rid of the filibuster, or to at least do the filibuster reform, so that, you know, Biden can pass his agenda. So does this seem like a payoff? It might. Do we know Manchin? He's going to be happy with his wife in the administration and vote against everything the Democrats push. We'll have to see what that happens. And in that case, you know, it would be a pretty poor payoff. Pretty short-sighted stuff. All right. Anyway. Damn cables. Yes, I'm having issues with my cabling. Here we go. Does Trump enjoys a good stream? Indeed. Is it not going to go in our favor? Does anything ever really go in our favor? I mean, some things, we got to learn how to take the W's when we get them, but they are kind of rare. So we'll see what happens. Anyway, yeah, we're doing it live. All right. Let's see. Yeah. So immediately in the article, by the way, you linked me. It did talk about the filibuster. So we all kind of know what's going on. I can't hire anybody. I can't afford to pay anybody a wage. So there's that. I barely afford to pay myself a wage. But all right. Anyway, let's move on. Let's get into the stories here. Oh, like and share, please. Also, very important that you do so. All right. Big, massive cables. Tremendous cables. The biggest cables. I get cables on cables. People always tell me my cables are so big. All right, anyway. Enough with that. All right. Following through on their threats, Dominion Voting Systems has launched another defamation suit, this time against Fox News, over their election coverage, which, if you can call it coverage, mainly it's just fear-mongering and stuff like that. But Dominion argues that Fox, which amplified inaccurate assertions that Dominion altered votes, sold a false story of election fraud in order to serve its own commercial purposes, severely injuring Dominion in the process, according to a copy of the lawsuit obtained by the Associated Press. Dominion, of course, being a voting machine company, was the target of online conspiracies that alleged that they were, of course, that and the software. And then there's another company, of course, that's related, Smartmatic, that is also suing Fox News, by the way. The conspiracies involve Dominion. Talk about how, it's the software is designed by Venezuelan leader Hugo Chavez in order to steal the elections for the express purposes of rigging elections. And somehow Biden, since he's a avowed communist, obviously, I know I cringe even saying those words, but they believe it. They believe it. They say that, you know, he then looked at this and said, I'm going to use that in the 2020 election. But wait a minute. Why didn't Hillary use it in 2016? Doesn't make any sense, does it? But no, none of this makes any sense. Okay, so obviously, no, there was no election fraud. They did not literally change votes from Trump to Biden. That did not actually happen. Multiple investigations proved there was no widespread fraud in the 2020 election at all. Even Trump's Attorney General, William Barr, confirmed this. Then you had Republican governors in Arizona and Georgia vouching for the integrity of the elections in their states. Even though, of course, that these Republicans have every reason to want to find fraud. Why? Well, because the governor of Georgia, Brian Kemp, just signed a massive, sweeping restriction of voting in his state. They don't want people voting. They want excuses to institute these laws that shut down voting. And again, if Republicans can't find voter fraud, people who are incentivized to do it, well, then obviously it doesn't seem to exist. Now, and again, the reason that I say that Republicans want this is because, again, those voter ID laws, those draconian laws, without it, none of their arguments have any merit. There would be absolutely no reason to do these voter fraud. Not that, of course, voter fraud laws or voter ID laws, I should say, not that it stops them from passing them anyway, but, if they had some, they could point out some examples in order to try to get their laws a little, at least the air of somewhat legitimacy, but they don't have any. And really right now, it's just a textbook definition of voter suppression. Still, there were Fox News hosts that continued to elevate the false charges. Again, you have Maria Bartiromo. She was one of the big purveyors of the big lie. Sean Hannity, Tucker Carlson, all that. All right. And they brought on people like Sidney Powell, Rudy Giuliani, the My Pillow guy. And so on and on and on. They pushed this lie. Now, Dominion said in the lawsuit that it repeatedly tried to set the record straight with Fox News, even warning Fox News, saying, hey, please don't do that. This is not what's going on. No, we're not run by the ghost of Hugo Chavez. We're not trying to rig the election. We just want to make money. We just want to make money by selling voting machines. And when you keep lying about us, well, then that impacts our profit motives. Our profit margins are harmed when you lie about us like this. If you don't stop a lying, we're going to have to come after you. And, well, that's what happened. So now they also say that the channel pushed false claims to explain away the former president's loss, of course, and add that Fox News behavior differed greatly from that of other media outlets that reported on the claims. This was a conscious, knowing business decision to endorse and repeat and broadcast these lies in order to keep its viewership, according to attorney Justin Nelson of Sussman Godfrey, LLC, one of their lawyers. Look, here's the thing. About half of all Republicans right now, almost, do not see Joe Biden as the legitimate president. That's insane. That's crazy. He's the president, whether you like it or not. And for the record, let's be fair, I also thought it was kind of stupid when the libs, after Donald Trump won, were saying, oh, it's not my president. It's not my president. No, he literally is. I'm sorry, but Hillary Clinton also lost. Her hubris cost her and us dearly. But she lost the election fair and square. Yes. Were there social media memes, and troll farms by the Russians? Yes, there were, but there were no votes that were changed. There was no election fraud. There was no voter fraud. And so, ironically, Trump supporters have now taken that argument, and taken the not my president to an extreme. And not only do not believe that Joe Biden is president, but they also, as a result of this, tried to overturn the election results by invading the Capitol. That is something the most ardent, I'm with her Hillary person would never consider doing. Never. You know what they did instead? They held protests. They held the Women's March. 100% fine. And if Trump supporters wanted to hold a million MAGA march that was entirely peaceful, would have been fine. We probably would have laughed because it would have been nowhere near a million people. But, hey, at least you're doing it peacefully. That's totally fine. But we see what happened when the MAGA chuds got together on January 6th. It was not peaceful. Now, my point is, of course, and I kind of took a roundabout way to get to it, is that the extreme MAGA people won't accept a media station that admits that Donald Trump lost fair and square, because they've shown that already they will abandon Fox News and go to Newsmax, OANN, and other outlets that are more than willing to say whatever they want for a buck. These are people that want confirmation bias. They do not want facts. They don't want factual information. They want confirmation bias. They want the things that they already believe to be regurgitated back to them. They do not want to hear facts. They do not want to hear data. They want to hear that, no, everything that you were thinking, you were right. Oh, you're right because you were smarter, you were better, you were more special. And so, forget all those, fancy experts with their little degrees. No. You, MAGA guy, sitting at home with your truck nuts and your hat, you were right. You were better than them. That's what they want to hear. That's why they tune into Fox News, because they want to be told over and over that they're special, and yet they call us snowflakes. which is the most hilarious thing that I've ever heard coming from the mouth of a MAGA guy. And so, anyway, now Fox News is a business. We know that. They're a corporation. Just like MSNBC is a corporation, NBC, CNN, they want to make money, right? I don't think, I think you should be able to make money off your opinions and doing opinion pieces. But when you do straight news, I don't know. I don't think the straight news should be a corporation. That's my opinion. Okay. Nonetheless, Fox News, being a corporation, did not want to lose viewers. So here we are. They made the decision. Well, I mean, our viewers really want to hear this, and we were set up to be propaganda for the Republican Party anyway. And so that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna pander to our audience. Congratulations. This is what happens. And the results, of course, for the workers in the company are undeniable. And I mean for Dominion. Okay, the results of this for Dominion were absolutely disastrous. It is now widely targeted in conservative circles, seen by millions of people as one of the main villains in a tale in which Democrats nationwide conspired to steal the votes from Trump, according to the lawsuit. Dominion's employees, from its software engineers to its founder, have been harassed, targeted. Many were given death threats, and the company itself has suffered enormous and irreparable economic harm. As I've explained, if you're a voting company, or if you're a company that creates voting machines, and you have almost half the voting population, millions of MAGA supporters, Trump supporters, and then state governors that are like thinking that you are rigging the votes, that's going to impact your business. That's going to impact your bottom line. And again, there's one thing corporations can't handle. It's something impacting their bottom line. And so that's why I say this is a pretty solid case. This is a pretty solid case. They've got a good case. That's why it's full speed ahead. That's why they're suing Giuliani. That's why they're suing, Powell. That's why they're suing the Sidney Powell, the MyPillow guy. And more lawsuits could be coming. Dominion lawyers said they have not filed lawsuits yet against specific media personalities, but the door, they say, remains open. So who knows? Who knows when that's coming? And some at Fox News, by the way, knew the claims were false, but their comments were drowned out, according to lawyers. The buck stops with Fox on this, according to attorney Stephen Shackelford. Fox chose to put this on all of its many platforms. They rebroadcast, republished on social media, and in many other places. And Fox News, by the way, Fox News is the biggest cable news outlet in the country. So that's why this has such a devastating impact. And it would be different for somebody compared to someone like me, right? So I have a relatively small following compared to Fox News. I have 163,000 subscribers versus millions and millions of people that watch Fox News on a nightly basis. So my reach, if I were to say something like that, that's not going to have that big of a harm on, this company's economic outlook. Okay. If anything, it's dismissed as fringe conspiracy, which, if I were saying stuff like that, it would be. But when Fox News is saying it with so much viewership, so much reach, it's undeniable that there is danger to this. There has been damage that has been done to this company, and not just the company, by the way, but also the country as a whole, as now you have millions of people, tens of millions of people who don't believe in our electoral system anymore. And so I do hope the company wins, and it takes all these people, the Fox News people, the MyPillow guy. I hope this company takes them to the cleaners. They probably won't. I'm sure there will be a settlement outside of court or something like that for, some millions of dollars. Keeping it real. But in a just world, which we do not live in, obviously, Fox News would pay a steep price for spreading disinformation and would be forced to change. Again, I wish we lived in that world. We don't. But, some sort of settlement, some sort of punishment, and maybe a change in the law bringing back like the fairness doctrine or something like that, something to where people cannot just spread these outright lies on the air. That would be a nice way to go. That's what I would want to do. All right. we got hugging and kissing coming up next. Oh boy. Former President Donald Trump is coming to the defense of his supporters following the January 6th Trump insurrection. And, of course, he's going to put the blame on, well, you guessed it, the left, Antifa. But first, he's going to talk about how sad it is for his supporters and how they're getting persecuted. Let's take a look.
It was a zero threat. Right from the start, it was zero threat. Look, they went in. They shouldn't have done it. Some of them went in and they're hugging and kissing the police and the guards. You know, they had great relationships. A lot of the people were waved in and then they walked in and they walked out. And I'll tell you what, they're doing things they're persecuting a lot of those people. And some of them some things should happen to them, but
they're hugging and kissing with the officers. Great. Okay. Now, some of them did get waved in. We've seen that video, okay? But you know what? That turned out to be a pretty big mistake because turns out these people were pretty violent. In fact, one police officer, Brian Sicknick, was killed as a result, injuries sustained in the attack, as well as at least 138 people in total suffered injuries that included burns, concussions, and fractures. So, yeah, no, there were violent people there. Okay. And not only violent, but also super messy. They smeared feces all over the hallways, broke into offices, smashed windows, stole property. But of course, none of that seems to matter because Donald Trump is going to now go on to blame the Antifers.
When I look at Antifa in Washington, even what they did to Washington and what they did to other locations and the destruction and frankly the killing and the beating up of people and nothing happens to them whatsoever, why aren't they going after Antifa?
Why aren't they going after the Antifa? Because they weren't there. They weren't there. Okay. Not only that, but Antifa hasn't killed anybody. And in fact, the entire framing here is just absolute bullshit. All right. For one, Antifa is not a group. It's an ideology. And in fact, the ideology has killed before. Yes. Yes, it turns out Antifa has killed people before. You know who it's killed? One of the biggest victims of Antifa ideology? Nazi ideology. Killed plenty of Nazis. Okay? The leaders of the Third Reich. Victims of Antifa during World War II. So, yeah, okay. Now, as far as the recent protests where people were, identifying as having an anti-fascist ideology, no, as far as I know, they haven't killed anybody. So, it's been a while. All right. But, of course, members of the far right, unfortunately, have. Furthermore, it was members of the far right that were at the Capitol on January 6th, not Antifa. In fact, even the FBI. The FBI, understand, they're not a friend to the left. Okay? I wouldn't trust the FBI, generally, as a leftist, okay? Because the FBI has done so much to try to crush left-wing movements all over the country. And of course, the less said about the CIA, the better. Oof, the CIA. But even the FBI, had to come out and admit, we looked into it, we couldn't find any Antifa on January 6th. We just couldn't. We couldn't find it there. We couldn't find Antifa in the riots during the George Floyd protests either. In fact, here's Michael Paul, special agent in charge of the FBI's Minneapolis field office. This was back in December. He said, quote, "We haven't seen any trend of Antifa folks who were involved here in the criminal activity or violence." Instead, much of the criminal activity took place during the unrest was just more opportunistic and did not involve people affiliated with specific groups. However, prosecutors say that the January 6th riot in Washington did involve multiple far-right groups, including white supremacists, gangs, and paramilitary groups, including some who coordinated before and during the violence. You had, of course, 3%ers, the Proud Boys, and other extremist groups. Okay, they were all there. They were there at the urging and behest of then President Donald Trump, which is why, of course, recently a federal prosecutor floated a possible charge of sedition towards the former president. In fact, this is Michael Sherwin, who until last week was the lead investigator, told CBS News, "I personally believe the evidence is trending towards that and probably meets those elements. I believe the facts do support those charges. And I think that as we go forward, more facts will support that." Well, yeah, I mean, given that we, of course, the fact that he was the most visible person in the country, and given the fact that he has been saying this on multiple occasions, on air, on television, in public, yeah, you might have a good case that he egged those people on, which is probably why he's telling his fans, many who are Republican officials, judges, congressmen, etc., that no, it wasn't us, it was Antifa. That's what it was. They were the ones who did the violence. It wasn't us. Go after them, not me. I didn't do anything. Now, the sad part about that is it will likely work. He's got a lot of support from the right wing in government, and they're more than willing to, as they've shown, to not do the right thing. So there you go. Sad. All right. Don't worry, I'm just fixing the auto mod here. Over on Twitch, gets a little crazy over there on Twitch. All right, moving on. Representative Lauren Boebert is not a good person. I think she's a bad person. I think she would rather own the libs than have more people voting and still allow, more people to die by gun violence than have more people who are against her voting. And in fact, she recently compared voting rights to gun ownership with this tweet that is completely non-factual, and I'm going to break it down. But here's what she said. Liberals keep saying it's easier to buy a gun than it is to vote, but I don't seem to remember when the government sent me an AR-15 in the mail. Checkmate, libs. Since they don't mail guns, but they do absentee ballots. Oh! All right, well, for one, there's degrees of difference here. Why would the government send you guns? That'd be kind of weird. And if the government sent you guns, would as a conservative, would you be against that? Be like, oh, no, can't believe the government's sending me freaking guns again. Jesus Christ. Waste taxpayer money. I want to go buy my own guns. It'd be weird. Really, really strange. But okay, anyway. So guns are commerce related. Yes, you have a Second Amendment right to go and buy guns. I don't dispute that. I don't think that that's necessarily a bad thing. Just got to know that, they are dangerous in the wrong hands. Sometimes, especially even in the right hands, they're pretty dangerous. And that you're more likely, if you own a gun, to, kill yourself or a family member. And that's the cost. That's the price of gun ownership in this country. People will die as a result. But all right, as long as you accept that and you're still fine with having guns in this country, then, well, okay, that's really it. Gun communism. Oh, my God. All right. So anyway, like I said, there are differences here, though, between the government sending you a ballot, an absentee ballot, and the government supposedly sending you a gun. Her tweet makes no sense. All right. For one, it's interesting because guns can be mailed. I bring that up because she does talk about and makes a comparison between, absentee ballots, which are primarily mailed or dropped off, and guns. All right, well, you can mail guns. Now, you have to make sure that they're not loaded. Unloaded rifles and shotguns can be mailed. However, the mail will need to verify by opening or by certification that the rifle or shotgun is unloaded and eligible for mailing. Okay. Subject to state, territory, or district regulations, rifles and shotguns may be mailed without restrictions when sent in the same state. So, okay, you can mail guns, and yeah, there's a little bit of red tape here. I mean, depending on where you live, it can be very easy to mail a gun to someone. Handguns, however, cannot be mailed. All right, fair enough. So now there are regulations to mailing guns. Now, does that mean that she is right? No. Because there are, again, major differences between getting an absentee ballot, mail-in voting, and guns. Okay. Now, in order to get an absentee ballot by voter mail, you've got to fill out some forms, right? You got to prove, right? In fact, in order to get an absentee ballot, a registered voter must request one through their state government, which accepts or rejects the application. When someone is approved to vote absentee, election officials then mail the voter an absentee ballot, which they can complete and sign, and return by mail or, under other circumstances, fax. Officials can reject those ballots if they are improperly filled out, and voters face steep penalties if they falsify information. In 16 states, an absentee ballot is the only form of voting through the mail that is allowed by law. And of course, there are stipulations here. And the voter is required to give a reason why they can't go to a voting location on election day. Exact rules vary by state, but qualifying reasons may include the following: being out of the country where they're registered to vote, being a student living outside the county, having an illness or disability, working or being on jury duty during voting hours, serving as an election worker or poll watcher, having religious beliefs or practices that prevent them from going to a voting center, being in prison, yet still having your ability to vote. So for absentee ballots, there are many stipulations. Okay. Now, it's important to note that in 29 states, a registered voter does not have to give a reason why they can't be at their polling place. So generally, I look at that as a pretty good thing. That allows people to do the no excuse absentee balloting. But still, you have to request these forms, and you got to fill them out. Now, the states themselves may simply call this ballot an absentee ballot, but there are 5 states, Washington, Oregon, Colorado, Utah, and Hawaii, that conduct their elections through a mail-in process that is often referred to as all-mail voting. Registered voters in these states automatically receive a ballot, which is sent to their address before election day and mailed back by the voter or deposited at a voting location or secure drop box by a certain time on election day. So these states, again, 5 states, allow you as a registered voter, you automatically get a ballot and you can fill it out. As long as you're registered, of course. Well, now that's what Lower and Boebert is talking about. And that's, unfortunately, this is what a lot of online right-wing ire, and not just online, but right-wing ire generally, aimed at these 5 states that allow you, as a registered voter, to just get a ballot mailed to you before the election. They hate that idea. They hate it. They despise it. But at the same time, and of course they want to get rid of it, Georgia itself, which does not have these rules. Georgia is basically trying to remove deposit boxes for absentee ballots, which again, they already require you to have an excuse to vote absentee. And even when you come up with that excuse, they still make it harder for you to drop off your ballot at these secure drop boxes. And so they're really doing a lot to add even more and more stipulations to voting, while at the same time making it even easier to buy a gun. So, and again, you also have to be registered to vote. I keep saying that, but that does require filling out forms, being approved, and the type of voting, again, that Boebert is talking about, only done in a few states, hers included, by the way. And that's probably why she even came up with this ridiculous tweet. Fun fact, also. Now, what we heard during the election a lot is that, oh my God, if you do mail-in voting, if you do absentee or mail-in voting, then the Democrats are going to get a massive advantage. Not necessarily. Turns out that studies done by organizations like Stanford University have found that voting by mail does not favor voter share or turnout of either major political party. Expanding access to voting by mail is generally considered great for all voters and their ability to exercise their right to vote. Oh, interesting. And until recently, until this last election, by the way, voting by mail and absentee voting was practiced by members of both parties without any sort of issue. That is until, of course, Donald Trump started coming up with lies about voting by mail, because what he wanted to do was he wanted to blame something on his loss. If he lost, he wanted a backup plan to say, oh, see, it was the mail-in ballots, all the voter fraud, because of the mail-in ballots. That's it. That's why I lost. Didn't have anything to do with me. No, I actually won. It was their fault. I didn't actually lose, because I never lose. I'm Donald Trump. I could never lose. Losing is not in my DNA because I have great genes. Tremendous genes, the best genes. All right, so look, his gullible followers, they fell for it. And now they hate mail-in ballots and they hate absentee voting for basically no reason. None. Just none. And there are states, again, where you now have to wait in line for hours in order to vote, show ID, fill out forms in order to vote. But in those same states, you can walk into a gun store and get the gun that day. Same day guns, not same day voting. And it does vary, of course. It is tougher to get, a gun in California or New York, but tougher to vote in places like Georgia and Alabama. So Boebert is wrong. It's not easier to vote than it is to get a gun, generally. It's actually more complicated and nuanced, as I've discussed, but obviously nobody cares about those things, especially when the libs are begging to be owned, right? Which is what she wanted to do, ultimately. Suffice to say, she did not get owned. She actually got a lot of backlash from this. For example, her opponent, Carrie Donovan, here's what they posted. This post is gross. Show some respect for grieving families. Colorado is, of course, where the most recent mass shooting happened. Her state. And she said nothing about it. Another person says, this onion tweet's hilarious. Thank goodness Lauren Boebert isn't a real person. Nobody could be that stupid, right? Wait, what? Hard to believe that we have insane people like Marjorie Taylor Greene and Lauren Boebert in Congress, in positions of power. People have voted for these people. These QAnon conspiracy theorists. And this lady who apparently loves, has an unhealthy obsession with her guns. I can understand enjoying guns. I like to go out and target shoot. That's fun. I find that awesome. It's great. But I don't have this weird obsession with guns, And those people. Most Americans who have guns are generally pretty good people. They're fine. They're careful. They're cautious. They want common sense gun regulation. They're totally fine with that. And they have a gun maybe for hunting, and they have a gun maybe for home protection, but they don't really give it a second thought. And then there are those people who are obsessed with their guns. Those are the people that are like, over my dead body. It's almost like it tries to be an extension of themselves. And an identity. That's what it is. It's an identity. It's so strange to me that there are people like this that feel this way about guns. And they're getting in the way of, again, the vast majority of people, vast majority of Americans who are like, yeah, we look, I like guns, I have guns. And I believe that, we should have some gun regulation. That's common sense. Wow. But it's not a surprise because, again, that's what most of the American people are. But there are people like Lauren Boebert who, again, they're tools of the NRA, and they have this weird identity wrapped up in their gun fetish. And it's just really, really, it'd be really, really strange, but it's also incredibly dangerous with these people in positions of power and holding such influence, because what they're doing is they're literally holding up any sort of common sense gun regulation that comes up. It's real strange. All right, now a couple more here. One tweet says, "Get back to me when you have the statistics on death caused by mail-in ballots." You're not going to find any. Just like the aforementioned voter fraud, can't really find any. Doesn't exist. And finally, every time I think she can't be that dumb, you come out and say something like this: "You can't vote in the same day you register in Georgia, but you can get a gun." Now that I think about it, the Georgia and Colorado shooters both purchased their gun within days of the murders. And here's the thing. Guns are pretty good at killing people. That's what they do. Killing people. Look, there are guns that kill animals. You know, your normal rifles, shotguns in some cases, you know, for birds. And then you got guns that are good at killing people. AR-15s are good at killing people. Their rounds are a little too large for hunting. And so people who, and again, any real gun and hunting aficionado is going to come out and tell you that, why would you ever want to go hunting with an AR-15? Are you stupid? No, you use something else to go hunting with. An AR-15 is designed to hunt people. That's what that is. And so that's what this gun is. That's what it's about, because it's always used to hunt people. And if you look at what guns have sold the most, it turns out the AR-15 was not America's most favorite gun until a few years ago, until just very recently, when it started getting hyped up by the NRA, when it started getting hyped up on conservative media sites. And it was really fascinating. But again, these guns, they're good at killing people, but the votes are good at killing groups like the NRA and killing bad political parties and bad ideologies. And so I would say that the one that seems to get targeted the most between guns and voting, the vote is much better at defending democracies than the other. How many years have we heard that, no, you need your gun to defend against tyranny? No. Actually, what's best at defending against tyranny, at least in this country, is your vote, which is why they keep trying to take it from you. All right. I'm going to take a real quick break here. We're going to come back. We got a story on voter fraud, or I'm sorry, not voter fraud, but voter suppression coming up next. And then Ken Klippenstein versus Amazon. You're going to love that story. Stay right here around the nation. Be right back.
It's like a shark, NATO, except with poop.
I like my meat tight. Tighten up my meat.
Welcome back to the show. Run the Nation right here. Waldorf Nation, Jeff Waldorf here with you.
Who's got a hammer?
Stop the hammering. I love it. All right, anyway. Let's move on. Oh, by the way, I want to thank here. I'm sorry, I can't get to your super chats because they disappeared on me. So I want to thank those who gave super chats. I'd like to read them, but they disappeared. YouTube, let me tell you. But I will thank, let's see, Monty Mouse for subscribing in advance for on Twitch. So thank you. I do appreciate that. All right. Let's do it. More stories. Georgia Republicans who lost the presidential election as well as special elections just made sure that nothing like that would ever happen again by passing a sweeping new measure to limit voting. This is voter suppression. The new measure will impose new ID requirements on those who vote by mail. Apparently, the 200,000 voters who do not have a driver's license or state ID. It will also limit the use of drop boxes for absentee ballots, criminalize voting groups from giving those standing in line to vote food and water, and shorten the period for runoff races. So all of that, of course, is an effort to try to stop people from being able to exercise their right to vote. Because, of course, I mean, you're not even allowed to give people standing in line for sometimes hours at a time, which, by the way, is an engineered problem. This is a problem that was created by Republicans to make people wait in line. And now they're saying, oh, these people waiting in line, you know what we should do? We should make them thirsty. We should deny them drinks. We should deny them food and water. That'll teach them to stand in line for their vote. They have criminalized giving people water. Barbaric, absolutely mind-blowingly barbaric. They also, and by the way, if it wasn't clear enough that this is a racist attempt to stop black people from voting, which was ironically one of the main principal reasons the KKK, the Ku Klux Klan, was created, tried to ban Sunday voting. So now, Sunday voting, you may think, wait, people vote on Sunday? Yeah. This is practiced by many churches, actually, the Souls to the Polls program. So now this helps congregations get to voting sites after church. Now, while that provision was ultimately dropped from the bill, it does kind of give away the targets of this because generally it's black churches that tend to do this, these kinds of programs. Why? White churches generally don't have to do it because, well, look who goes to generally these white churches. Let's be honest. Now, the bill passed with the votes of 34 to 20 in the Senate, 100 to 75 in the House with a majority. And of course, Governor Brian Kemp signed it because Governor Brian Kemp understands that he is still a very bad person. He cheated his way over Stacey Abrams to get into power by doing massive voter suppression. And he, once again, is signing a bill for massive voter suppression. In a statement, Representative Nikema Williams, chair of the Georgia Democratic Party, called the measure the, quote, most flagrantly racist partisan power grab of elections in modern Georgia history. Quote, though it's unsurprising that Brian Kemp, the architect of voter suppression, is tying his legacy to this racist anti-democratic bill, it's no less shameful. Though he and his fellow Republicans are insulting the memory of heroes like John Lewis, who risked their lives for the right to vote, disempowering the millions of Georgians who have exercised that sacred right as a result. Republicans, of course, responded with a different talking point. They touted this bill as an effort to restore the trust in their elections following 2020. This is State Senator Max Burns, per the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, saying, our goal is to ensure that voters in Georgia have confidence in the elections process. This is a solid step in the right direction to provide voter integrity in Georgia. You want to talk about trust? Really? What would be a reason that people didn't trust these elections as opposed to any other election? Ain't voter fraud, because they really didn't find widespread voter fraud. Even the former president's own officials said that there was no voter fraud. All right. Very secure election, most secure in history, they said. In Georgia, hand and machine recounts confirm that Biden won the state by about 12,000 ballots. So now why? It's because black turnout was high for Biden, as well as high for Warnock and Ossoff. I mean, the conclusions here are obvious. They don't want black people voting. They've never wanted black people to vote. And voter ID tends to affect minority communities more than they affect other communities. Now, I'm not saying that it doesn't affect other communities, white communities specifically, poor white people. It does. But it predominantly affects African-American communities. It's true. I mean, consider the lack of resources that we put in those communities, by the way. I mean, Secretary of State offices where you can get these IDs, they're not always as accessible in these communities. They don't have public transportation, for example, or they're consistently overburdened and understaffed. Things like that that people don't realize. And you also have issues where people will work multiple jobs at odd hours, and they don't have time to get those IDs. Or, they're taking care of their families. You also have people that are elderly, disabled, students that are not able or can't afford to go and get these specialized IDs. And even though that most people are able to actually get these things, let's not lose sight of the real fact that this is nothing more than an inconvenient roadblock placed in someone's way that doesn't actually need to be there. And that's the thing about this. It is unnecessary. Why does grandma, who doesn't drive, hasn't for 20 years, have to go out of her way to get either a driver's license, which she's not going to have, or a specialized ID to vote? Why does she need to do that? Why? Who's going to do the voter fraud? It would be different if there was a rash of voter fraud around, but there just isn't. There's a handful of cases out of millions, tens of millions of votes. That's not a good enough reason to put these roadblocks in people's way. But again, Republicans, they don't care about the facts. They only care about their feelings. And really, the only goal is to win. And they win when they restrict the vote. And that's it. All right. Moving on. Yeah. Okay. So before I get to this, Revenue for instance, ID sounds reasonable, but they make it hard to get, which is why not just automatically send everyone an ID? If you're going to do an ID, okay, all right, then send everyone free of charge an ID. Everyone. I'd take that compromise. Would they do that? No. Would they try to do some sort of tricky lists? Of course they would. Would they? I can't believe your ID got lost in the mail before the election. Oops. You don't think it would happen? Of course it would happen. Okay. Now let's do it. Amazon is once again under fire for reports about terrible working conditions in their warehouses. In fact, it's gotten so bad that the employees at Bessemer, Alabama, have gotten together to push for a union. Now, unionization push in Alabama, that's awesome. Senator Bernie Sanders has planned to join the workers in that push. In fact, he's traveling to Alabama in order to literally join them on the front. So that's great. Now, Amazon, of course, not happy about this. Okay, and one executive actually took to Twitter. Here's what he had to say. If you want to hear about $15 an hour in healthcare, Senator Sanders will be here speaking downtown. But if you want to make at least $15 an hour and have good healthcare, Amazon is hiring. So now Representative Mark Pocan responded to that tweet. Here's what he said. Paying workers $15 an hour doesn't make you a progressive workplace. When you union bust, make workers urinate in water bottles. Well, that escalated quickly. Now, of course, his statement is based on reports from 2018, which showed that Amazon workers in their warehouses would have to skip bathroom breaks. They would pee in bottles, defecate in bags in order to make rate. So they would not be able to do normal human bodily functions in order to make Amazon rate, or else they get in trouble or they get fired from that job. So now Amazon denies this. In fact, there's a hilarious tweet here saying, you don't really believe the peeing in bottles thing, do you? If that were true, nobody would work for us. That's pretty ridiculous. It's as ridiculous as it sounds, because in reality, as long as work is, tied to surviving as a human being, getting food, water, shelter, there will be employers who will exploit this need and mistreat their workers for a profit for themselves. In fact, investigative reporter Ken Klippenstein recently spoke to Amazon workers, and they said that this practice still continues. It had happened, and it still happens. And in fact, it's so widespread due to the pressure to meet these quotas that managers frequently referenced it during meetings and informal policy documents and emails, which were all provided to The Intercept. So Kenny's got receipts, okay? Now, the practice these documents show were known to management, which identified it as a recurring infraction. So now an infraction would be caught peeing in a bottle. But the whole problem is that they are forced to do so to make rate. Now, Amazon's like, we're going to punish you for doing that, but we're not going to fix the reason why you have to do that. Evil company. And by the way, again, as I mentioned, there are also people that had to poop in bags. So, in fact, one document from January marked Amazon Confidential details various infractions by Amazon employees, including public urination, public defecation. The document was provided to The Intercept by an Amazon employee in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, who was granted anonymity to avoid professional reprisal. That employee also provided an email sent by Amazon Logistics area manager last May that had chastised employees for defecating into bags. This evening, an associate discovered human feces in an Amazon bag that was returned to station by a driver. This is the third occasion in the last 2 months when bags have been returned to station filled with poop inside. It's not funny, but also...
It's like Sharknado, except with poop.
All right. We understand that DAs, driver associates, may have emergencies while on the road, and especially during COVID, DAs have struggled to find bathrooms while delivering. No, it's because the delivery schedule is so incredibly stringent that you cannot literally take time out to go and relieve yourself if you're a driver or an Amazon warehouse worker. You don't have time to poop. Terrible. In fact, here's what that email continued by saying, we noticed an uptick recently of all kinds of unsanitary garbage being left inside bags. Use masks, gloves, bottles of urine. By scanning the QR code in the bag, we can easily identify the DA who was in possession of the bag last. These behaviors are unacceptable and result with Tier 1 infractions going forward. Please communicate this message to your drivers. I know it may seem obvious or like something you shouldn't need to coach, but please be explicit when communicating the message. They cannot poop or leave bottles of urine inside bags. Again, what are you supposed to do if you don't have time? You got to have time to be a human, to tend to bodily needs. This is insane. Absolutely insane. You should be able to have time. And again, The reports coming out of Warehouse and his driver's associates, they're the stuff of dystopian nightmares. But they're not nightmares. They are here and they are absolutely real. In fact, one employer said this. This is Haley Marie Brown, a 26-year-old resident of California who worked as a delivery driver for an Amazon contractor, Student Express. She told The Intercept that the practice happens because we are literally implicitly forced to do so. Otherwise, we will end up for losing our jobs for too many undelivered packages. Another driver told The Intercept, they give us 30 minutes of paid breaks, but you will not finish your work if you actually take them, no matter how fast you are. So what's the point of a break if if it's not enough, if your route is so packed that you don't have time to take it? Asked if management eased up on the quotas in light of the practice, the same person said, not at all. In fact, over the course of my time there, our package and stop counts actually increased substantially. Amazon employees also said that the performance is monitored so closely that they're constantly in fear of falling short of their productivity quotas. One email provided The Intercept by a Houston-based driver associate who works for a contractor talks about how the vans are now filled with cameras and other surveillance equipment. The employee said, every single day of my shift, I've used a restroom and a bottle to finish my route on time. And I'm sure that, it's not just Amazon employees that have to do this. I'm sure a lot of shipping now has to do this, or has always had to do this. And it's not right. In fact, that employee said, so common, you often find bottles from other drivers located in the seat in the van. The fact that Amazon would tweet that is hilarious. Yeah, I mean, look, on the one hand, yeah, it's funny, sort of. But at the same time, it's also incredibly horrible. People having to pee in bottles and crap in bags, wear adult diapers to work because they're not able to take bathroom breaks because, well, if they do, they take time off. I mean, they're going to get busted for not making rate. And imagine, of course, if somebody had something like Crohn's or IBS where, their bathroom, like their days get interrupted by having to suddenly go and use the bathroom, sometimes multiple times. Those people, they can't work those jobs for sure. They'd never make rate as a result. And so that's terrible. And then what's really scary is the monitoring. That may actually be the worst part because you have all the cameras, the devices, the surveillance, the steps, the clocks. These people are being treated as if they're not human. They're machines. There's no other way to explain it. I mean, that's what they're being treated like. But of course, people are not machines. They're not meant to be treated like this. And there's no reason for it. There's no reason that Amazon can't hire more people to be more productive. Oh, but we'd have to pay them, obviously. Of course. But there's no reason they couldn't afford to do that, so that they wouldn't have to do this and still get the same amount of productivity without turning people into actual human robots. And that's the problem. You've got to give people time. You've got to be able to reduce that rate of work that every individual has to do to give them room to do human things. And this is why the union push is important. Without unions, without labor laws, without any sort of representation for the worker, you don't have rights in the workplace. Without a democratization of the workplace, you have no rights. Every big company, every big corporation would do this if they can get away with it. And a lot of them do, unfortunately. And this is why workers need that representation. This is why it's important that, this union effort succeed in Alabama. That's why, of course, the people who are not only talking the talk, but are walking the walk that are going down there to Alabama and supporting this. Hell, you even have Joe Biden that's in support of this, which is very strange. But good. We'll take all that we can get for this unionized push for these workers. We should all support the efforts in Alabama and support unionization efforts everywhere in this country, because that is the only way that we are going to have any sort of worker rights in this country and have any sort of pull or heft if we want to do direct action, general strikes, anything like that. We need that unionization push. We need labor to be represented. Okay. All right. There you go. Let's go here. Dango Bango says Amazon human rights violation trial when? As soon as they stop, giving politicians donations and buying them off, which will unfortunately be never, at least from what I can see. And thanks to that new member, by the way. Much appreciations. All right, everybody. Thank you for going around the nation with me today. Please like and share the stream if you haven't already. Very important that you do so. Helps us out. Have a great weekend. Try to, anyway. And we'll see you back here next week. Around the nation. Love you. We'll see you. See you later.
Please clap.
Wet ass keyword.
Give me a break.
There's insanity in the control room.
Masturbate all day long.
Why? You're getting nervous, man.
Who's got a hammer?
Please clap. They're kicking me out the door. They're kicking me out the door.